The apple pie feels warm against my palms as I stand on my parents' porch, the November wind nipping at my back. I've spent 3 hours perfecting this dessert, Mom's favorite, hoping it might soften whatever tension awaits inside. My knuckles barely graze the mahogany door when it swings open, revealing Dad's broad shoulders and Mom's pearls glinting in the foyer light. Their expressions stop me cold. Dad's jaw is set in that familiar way that means his mind is made up. Mom won't meet my eyes. "Scotty," Dad says, his voice clipped and formal. "This isn't a good time." I blink, confused. "Not a good time? It's Thanksgiving dinner. You said 4 o'clock. You're not invited this year, Scotty." Mom finally looks at me, her eyes hard and unfamiliar. "We thought we made that clear." The pie suddenly weighs 100 pounds in my hands. "Clear? When did you?" Dad shifts his weight, blocking more of the doorway. But not before I catch a glimpse of our dining room through the gap, the table set with grandmother's china, candles lit, wine poured. Dante sits in his usual place, laughing at something. And there, in what has been my chair for 31 years, sits Riley. Riley, who was once my closest friend at the firm. Riley, who now occupies my place like she's always belonged there. Is that Riley? My voice sounds strange, thin and distant. Mom's fingers flutter nervously at her neck. She's been very supportive through this difficult time. In that moment, I realize my family has replaced me without a second thought. The world narrows to this doorway, this threshold I'm suddenly not permitted to cross. Last Tuesday flashes through my mind the afternoon I first noticed the discrepancies. I was reviewing client accounts, preparing quarterly reports, when patterns emerged that couldn't be coincidence. Transfers between accounts that made no sense. Money moving through channels designed to obscure rather than clarify. I'd taken my concerns straight to Dad's office, laptop in hand. "These transactions don't add up," I explained, turning the screen toward him. "Someone's shifting client funds through shell companies before they reach their intended investments." Dad barely glanced at the spreadsheet. "You don't understand how this business works. Leave it alone." "I understand exactly how it works. That's the problem." I pointed to the screen. "This isn't aggressive investment strategy. This is fraud." He closed my laptop with one finger. "You're overreacting. This is how we maintain our competitive edge." "By stealing from clients?" His face darkened. "Lower your voice. This discussion is over." But it wasn't over. 2 days later, I confronted him again, this time with more complete documentation. We stood in his wood-paneled office, decades of family photos watching from the walls. "Dad, these transactions are illegal. We need to report this." "Report what? Your wild accusations? You'd destroy this family over some misunderstanding?" He leaned forward, his voice dropping to that dangerous register that used to frighten me as a child. "Your loyalty should be to this family first. Always." I remembered how my hands trembled as I closed my laptop, not from fear, but from clarity. For the first time, I saw my father not as the titan of finance I'd idolized, but as a man making choices I couldn't follow. Later, Dante cornered me in the parking garage, his expensive cologne overwhelming in the confined space. "My brother, the golden child, the one who never questioned. What are you doing, Scotty?" he hissed. "Just let it go. You're jeopardizing everything we've built." "We didn't build anything on stolen money," I replied. "I built my reputation on trust." He laughed, the sound echoing off concrete pillars. "Trust? This is finance, not friendship bracelets. Do you have any idea what you're risking? Your career, your inheritance, your place in this family?" I did know. I just hadn't realized how quickly they'd make good on that threat. Now, standing on this porch with cooling pie in my hands, it all becomes real. My career at the family firm, my relationships, my financial security, all hanging in the balance. But oddly, as I stare at my father's unyielding expression, I feel something unexpected relief. Like setting down a weight I've carried too long. "Keep the pie," I say, placing it in my mother's startled hands. "Consider it my parting gift." On Monday next week, after the incident, the file folder in my hands weighs almost nothing, but the documents inside might as well be concrete blocks crushing my chest. I've spent 3 days meticulously reviewing every transaction flagged by the system, and what I've found goes beyond simple accounting errors or aggressive investment strategies. My father has been systematically defrauding clients for years. I flip to the summary page I created, tracing my finger along the timeline of transfers. The pattern is unmistakable once you know what to look for. Client funds diverted through shell companies before being rerouted to accounts that don't match their intended investments. Some money disappears entirely. The elevator doors open to the executive floor at Perez Capital Management. My hands shake so badly I have to tuck the folder under my arm. Mrs. Bellamy's retirement account depleted by 60%. The Whitman's College Fund for their twins down nearly $80,000. The Sanderson Foundation's endowment, millions siphoned off gradually over 3 years. I steady myself against the wall, my breath coming in short gasps. These aren't just numbers. They're real people, many elderly, who trusted us with their life savings. Victor's assistant avoids my eyes as I approach his office. He's expecting you, she says quietly. I push open the heavy oak door to find my father standing behind his mahogany desk, backlit by floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing the Chicago skyline. Dante lounges in one of the executive chairs, scrolling through his phone with affected nonchalance. Uncle Martin, our family's attorney for 30 years, stands near the credenza, nervously shuffling papers. No one offers me a seat. I've reviewed the accounts, I say, dropping the folder onto Victor's desk. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. This is fraud, Dad. Systematic, deliberate fraud. Victor doesn't even glance at the folder. These are complex investment vehicles, Scotty. You've always been impatient with the details. I pulled 5 years of transaction records. I tap the folder. The pattern is clear. Client funds diverted through shell companies, then disappearing or being reinvested for the firm's benefit. It's textbook embezzlement. Martin clears his throat. Scotty, these allegations are extremely serious. You should consider the implications before. Before what? Before our clients discover we've stolen their money? Dante finally looks up from his phone. Jesus, Scotty, lower your voice. You knew. I stare at my brother, the realization dawning. You've been helping him cover it up. Victor walks around his desk, positioning himself between me and the door. We've created wealth for hundreds of families over decades. The market changes. Sometimes adjustments are necessary. Quote, adjustments? You've taken money from elderly retirees who can't afford to lose it. Every client signs risk disclosure forms, Martin interjects. Legally, we're protected. The pieces click into place. That's why you rewrote the client agreements last year. You were creating legal shields. No one denies it. Victor places a hand on my shoulder. His touch makes my skin crawl. Scotty, you're part of this family. This firm is your legacy too. Not if it's built on theft. Be reasonable. Dante stands, straightening his Italian suit. Think about what you'd be throwing away. Your inheritance. Your reputation in the industry. My reputation? What about Riley telling people at the Thompson event I'm having a breakdown? Victor's face reveals nothing. Riley is protecting this family while you threaten everything we've built. She said I was unstable and fabricating problems, I say. That was you, wasn't it? You told her to spread those rumors. We needed to manage the situation, Dante says. You've been acting erratically. For a moment, doubt creeps in. Am I overreacting? Missing something crucial that would make their actions justifiable? But the numbers don't lie. The devastation these clients will face doesn't lie. If you proceed with these accusations, Martin says, you understand the consequences? Victor's voice turns ice cold. No trust disbursements, no firm resources, no family support. You'll be completely on your own. I leave without another word, my mind spinning with their threats. In the elevator, I press the button for the accounting floor instead of the lobby. Clara works late on Mondays. I find my cousin alone in her office, spreadsheets covering her desk. Can we talk? I ask, closing her door. She studies my face. You found something in those accounts, didn't you? I nod, afraid to speak. I've noticed irregularities too. She whispers, sliding a USB drive across her desk. I've been tracking them for months. I was afraid to say anything. The validation nearly brings me to tears. I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. As I drive home that night, I wonder if I should report what I've found immediately, or gather more evidence first. The immediate satisfaction of exposing the truth tempts me, but patience might yield a more complete victory. What would you do when the stakes involve your own family's future? 2 days later, the press release appeared on my computer screen like a digital slap. My father's carefully worded announcement about my temporary leave of absence from Perez Capital Management cites personal issues requiring immediate attention. The subtext is clear. Scotty Perez is unstable, unreliable, not to be trusted with your money. My phone rings. Third client today calling to withdraw their business from my fledgling agency. I'm sorry, Scotty, says Gerald Whitman, a loyal client for 5 years. Your father called personally, said you were going through something difficult. Suggested we might want to postpone our rebranding until you're back on your feet. The careful pauses tell me exactly what Victor implied. Mental breakdown, emotional instability, maybe addiction. I understand, Gerald. My voice stays steady while my free hand clenches so tight my nails leave half-moons in my palm. After hanging up, I check my bank account, a habit born of growing anxiety, and find my balance frozen. A call to the bank confirms my worst fear. All accounts connected to the family trust have been suspended pending internal review. Just like that, 15 years of my own earned commissions and savings vanish behind a wall of Perez family control. They're not just attacking my reputation, they're ensuring I can't fund a proper defense. The downtown apartment, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and doorman, goes first. I pack 3 suitcases and move to a 1-bedroom rental in Evanston, 40 minutes north and worlds away from my previous life. The real estate agent takes one look at my frozen accounts and requires 3 months advance rent, draining most of my emergency cash. My phone becomes an instrument of dread. Each ring might be another client leaving, another colleague believing the rumors. I start silencing it during the day, checking messages only after a glass of wine at night. Sleep becomes elusive. I wake at 3 a.m., heart pounding, certain I've missed something crucial in the documentation I'm compiling. I create elaborate spreadsheets tracking every suspicious transaction, color-coded timelines of who knew what when. The walls of my new bedroom disappear behind printouts and sticky notes. Food loses its taste. I subsist on coffee and protein bars, forgetting meals until dizziness reminds me. My clothes hang looser. The face in the mirror looks hollow-eyed, determined. Still, I type. Print. Highlight. Each documented transaction becomes another brick in the wall between my old life and whatever comes next. Whatever they take from me, they can't take this. The truth, methodically assembled, page by damning page. A knock interrupts my concentration. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, stands in the hallway, holding a loaf of bread still warm from the oven. Whatever they're saying about you, dear, I've known you since you were small. You've always done the right thing. Her simple faith brings the first tears I've allowed myself. The unexpected knock comes on a Thursday evening next week. Through the peephole, I see my father's stern profile and my mother's pearl earrings catching the hallway light. I open the door but don't invite them in. They enter anyway. Mom's eyes widen at the papers covering every surface. Dad remains impassive. This has gone far enough, Scotty, he says, surveying my cramped living room with barely concealed distaste. Mom opens her designer handbag, removes a thick document. Just sign these papers saying you were mistaken, and everything goes back to normal. Her voice carries a rehearsed lightness. Your apartment, your accounts, your position at the firm. We'll tell everyone it was all a misunderstanding. Dad steps closer. Be reasonable. This crusade of yours helps no one and hurts everyone, including yourself. He gestures at my surroundings. Is this really worth it? I look at them. Really look. Mom's carefully maintained appearance masking her discomfort. Dad's absolute certainty that I'll eventually bend to his will, just as I always have. Something shifts inside me, a tectonic plate finding its true position. Normal was the problem, I say, the words coming from somewhere deeper than thought. I can't pretend anymore. Mom's face crumples, Dad's hardens. Then you've made your choice, he says. As the door closes behind them, I realize I'm standing taller. Their approval, which I've sought my entire life, suddenly weighs nothing against the clarity of this moment. For the first time since this began, I'm absolutely certain I'm on the right side of this fight. Ethan from the SEC calls the next morning. I reviewed those preliminary documents you sent, he says, voice lowered. We need to talk. Not on the phone, not at my office. We meet at a coffee shop in Wilmette. He slides a notepad across the table. You're on to something significant, but we need more. Specific transactions, account numbers, authorization chains. Later that evening, Clara calls from her car. I'm parked 3 blocks away. My cousin whispers, Victor doesn't know I made copies of the quarterly reports he tried to alter. I'm bringing everything. With each conversation, each piece of evidence accumulating, I feel a shift. My voice grows firmer in meetings. My hands no longer shake when the phone rings. When I speak about what I've found, I no longer sound like someone seeking validation, but like someone presenting undeniable facts. The truth, it turns out, has its own gravitational pull. A week later, the SEC investigation file grows. Ethan helps me organize the evidence chronologically, building an airtight case. Clara continues feeding me internal documents, each more damning than the last. Then comes the unexpected breakthrough. Uncle Martin has been keeping his own detailed records for years, an insurance policy against the day Victor might turn on him too. His secretary reaches out, offering access to the hidden files. I'm reviewing Martin's documents when my phone lights up with a name I never expected to see again. Riley. Her message is brief. We need to talk before it's too late. For both of us. My finger hovers over the screen. 2 days later, after gathering enough documents, the conference room at the SEC feels sterile and impersonal. All glass and steel and uncomfortable chairs. It suits my purposes perfectly. I slide the last document across the polished table to Ethan Caldwell, watching his expression carefully as he reviews it. This transaction here, I say, tapping a highlighted line, shows how client funds were diverted through shell companies before reaching their supposed investments. I've organized everything meticulously, a chronological timeline spanning 5 years. Impact statements from unwitting clients, even internal memos documenting the deliberate cover-up. Ethan removes his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Miss Perez, when you first contacted us, I thought this might be a disgruntled employee situation or a family dispute. He spreads the documents before him like playing cards. But this is systematic. The scale of it is criminal, I finish for him. And it's still happening. He nods slowly, his professional demeanor cracking to reveal genuine concern. I'll need to bring in our forensic accounting team. This will trigger a formal investigation. That's what I was hoping for. I'm halfway to my car when my phone buzzes. Riley. I almost declined the call, but curiosity wins out. Can we meet? Her voice has that artificial sweetness I used to mistake for warmth. Just you and me, like old times. The Standard downtown, 1 hour? The elegant lounge of the Standard is mostly empty at this hour. Riley sits at a corner table, a tumbler of amber liquid before her, fingers drumming nervously against the glass. She looks up when I approach, her smile tight and calculated. You look terrible, she says, somehow making it sound like concern. I slide into the chair across from her. What do you want, Riley? She leans forward, lowering her voice. They're offering you $5 million to walk away. I blink, genuinely caught off guard. Excuse me? $5 million, Scotty. Tax-free, offshore account. All you have to do is sign a statement saying you misinterpreted some transactions and withdraw your allegations. My hand slips into my pocket, pressing the record button on my phone. Who's offering? Your father, of course. With Dante's full support, she sips her drink. You won the point, Scotty. You proved you have principles. Now take the win and the money. That sounds an awful lot like a bribe to obstruct a federal investigation. Riley laughs, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Don't be dramatic. It's a family settling a disagreement privately. By offering money to conceal fraud? By offering you a way out before everyone gets hurt. She pushes an envelope across the table. Names, account numbers, transfer instructions, 5 million reasons to let this go. I don't touch the envelope. You do realize you're explicitly confirming there's something criminal to cover up? Riley's smile falters. Too late, she recognizes her mistake. With the SEC now fully investigating my family's firm, I wonder if I should accept their offer to join the restructuring board. Would I be compromising my principles by trying to save what could be saved? Or would walking away completely be the cleaner break? The next morning, Clara calls. I've sent everything to Ethan, she says without preamble. Account records going back 7 years, internal memos, even Dad's private notes from board meetings. Thank you, I whisper, throat tight with unexpected emotion. That couldn't have been easy. Easier than living with lies. Martin's cooperating too. He's turning over documentation of all the legal workarounds they used. By afternoon, it's happening faster than I anticipated. Ethan confirms the SEC has frozen the firm's primary assets and launched a formal investigation. Clara's and Martin's evidence corroborates everything in my timeline, creating an airtight case. The news breaks just after market close. Financial fraud investigation rocks Chicago firm. Blares the headline on my phone. I'm still reading when another call comes through. Scotty. My father's voice sounds strange, smaller somehow, with a tremor I've never heard before. This has gone too far. Scotty. I remain silent, savoring the unfamiliar power of making him wait for my response. We need to talk, he continues, desperation leaking into his tone. As a family. At the house. About what? How to avoid prison. A heavy pause stretches between us. Please, he says finally. The word sounds foreign in his mouth. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. As I end the call, I realize my hands aren't trembling anymore. For the first time since this began, the weight on my shoulders feels less like a burden and more like strength. The next day at my parents' house, the leather chair in my parents' living room feels cool against my palms as I perch on its edge. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's skyline glitters against the evening sky, a view I once found comforting. Now it feels like a kingdom built on quicksand. Father stands by the fireplace, his posture lacking its usual rigid confidence. Mother paces behind the sofa, her diamond bracelet catching the light with each nervous gesture. Dante sits opposite me, legs crossed, fingers steepled under his chin. We've prepared a statement. Father slides a folder across the coffee table. The board agrees you should take control of the company. I don't touch it. Control of what? A firm under SEC investigation? A temporary setback. His voice softens to a tone I haven't heard since childhood. You can fix this, Scotty. Sign this amended statement, take the helm, and we'll issue a public apology for the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? The word hangs between us. Mother approaches, eyes glistening. Please, Scotty. Everything we built over 40 years, your father's legacy, our reputation, is that worth destroying over some accounting discrepancies? They weren't discrepancies. I keep my voice steady. They were deliberate acts of fraud against people who trusted you. Dante slams his hand on the armrest. Do you have any idea what you've done? 3 generations of Perez's built this company. Grandfather arrived with nothing but a high school education and created something that mattered. You're burning it all down because you've suddenly developed a conscience? The accusation stings less than it would have months ago. Their desperation tastes almost sweet after what they've put me through. You want me to lie to federal investigators? I say, take control of a sinking ship, and somehow convince everyone the water isn't really rising. Father sits beside Mother, takes her trembling hand in his. We're offering you everything. The company, a public vindication, your place in this family restored. My place? I pull my laptop from my bag. Let me show you what I've been working on instead of accepting your bribes. I open a spreadsheet and turn it toward them. This is a restitution fund I've established for the clients whose money you stole. Mother gasps. Father leans forward, eyes narrowing as he scans the figures. I've committed my entire savings, including what I set aside for my bonuses before I knew what was happening. Clara has contributed her trust fund portion. Even Uncle Martin added what he could. Dante stands, pointing at the screen. This is insane. You can't possibly cover the losses. Not all of them. I admit. But enough to help the worst affected clients, the retirees who invested their life savings, the small business owners who trusted us with their employees' pensions. You would bankrupt yourself for strangers? Father's voice sounds hollow. For the truth. I close the laptop. A legacy built on lies was never worth protecting. The room falls silent except for Mother's soft weeping. The city lights shimmer through the windows, indifferent to our family drama. I remember standing in this room as a child, watching Father close deals over the phone, believing he was something greater than ordinary men. I've brought the paperwork to formally resign from the family trust. I remove an envelope from my bag. I'm relinquishing my inheritance, my shares in Perez Capital, and my rights to any family properties. Father's face drains of color. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. I slide the papers across the table. I've had my lawyer review everything. It's binding once you sign. Ha! Father doesn't move. Dante snatches the papers, skims them, then tosses them back on the table. This is your final answer? Father's voice cracks. You would choose strangers over your own blood? The question hangs between us. I think of all the times he lectured me about family loyalty, about protecting our own. I chose the truth, I say quietly. You taught me that family protects its own. Those clients trusted us to protect them. They were our family too. Father collapses into his chair like a marionette with cut strings. Mother sobs into her hands. Dante paces to the window, turns his back on all of us. The SEC will announce formal charges tomorrow morning. I stand, suddenly eager to leave this house that no longer feels like home. They have everything they need. Did your mother know? Father asks, his voice barely audible. I hesitate, looking at Mother's crumpled form on the sofa. That's not for me to say. I gather my things, walk toward the foyer. Something catches my eye on the mantelpiece, a collection of family photos in silver frames. My graduation picture, always positioned center front, is missing. In its place sits a gap, like a missing tooth in a forced smile. They erased me before I even walked in tonight. I pause at the door, waiting for someone to call me back, to ask me to stay. The silence stretches. I step outside, pulling the door closed behind me with a soft click that sounds like freedom. 1 year later, my Evanston townhouse smells of fresh paint and possibility. The morning sun streams through uncurtained windows, casting golden rectangles across the hardwood floor where I've spread client files. 6 months since the SEC investigation concluded, and my new financial advisory practice already has 37 clients, not the billion-dollar portfolios Dad and Dante managed, but honest people with modest savings who deserve protection. I sip coffee from my chipped Northwestern mug while reviewing Mrs. Henderson's retirement plan. She taught 3rd grade for 40 years and trusted me with her future after reading the Financial Times profile calling me the reformer changing industry standards. The article sits framed not on my desk but in my kitchen, where I'll see it during doubtful moments. Bigger isn't better, I tell my reflection in the window. Honest is better. My phone buzzes with a text from Clara. Don't forget cranberries. Everyone arrives at 4. I smile. 1 year since I stood on my parents' porch with that pie. 1 year of rebuilding. The kitchen counter overflows with Thanksgiving preparations. Turkey roasting, potatoes waiting to be mashed, green bean casserole bubbling. No family china here, just mismatched plates I've collected from secondhand shops, perfect in their imperfection. By 4, my dining room hums with conversation. Clara arranges flowers while Martin carves the turkey. Ethan from the SEC discusses retirement with Mrs. Henderson, whom I invited because no one should spend holidays alone. Former colleagues who stood by me when rumors flew fill the remaining seats. I clink my glass for attention, surprised by my steady hand. Last Thanksgiving, I lost what I thought was everything. I say, looking around the table. Today I realize I've gained what matters most. To second chances, and the courage to take them. And to family, Clara adds, raising her glass. The one we choose, not just the one we're born into. We toast, laughter warming the room more than my ancient radiators ever could. For the first time in months, I feel no phantom weight on my shoulders, no need to glance over them. The conversation flows like wine stories shared, bonds strengthened. These people stood beside me when standing anywhere was difficult. Your father asked about you at the sentencing, Martin mentions quietly as we load the dishwasher later. Dante too. I nod, carefully placing a wineglass on the top rack. I heard the ethics board wants me to consider a position, I say, to help restructure industry standards. You'd be perfect, Martin says. Your name means something different now. Integrity, not just legacy. The doorbell interrupts us. Through the peephole, I see Dante standing alone on my porch, holding a covered dish, his shoulders hunched against the November chill. His expression lacks the arrogance. I remember his face thinner, eyes shadowed. I hesitate, my hand on the doorknob. The board position papers wait unsigned on my desk. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past, but perhaps it means not being imprisoned by it. As I stand at my own doorway, now with the power to exclude or welcome, I wonder if true healing comes from extending the forgiveness we were once denied, or if some boundaries should remain firm even after the storm passes. What would you do when faced with a family member who once betrayed you, but now stands humbled at your door? I take a breath and open the door wider.